Chapter 6. Magician. The castle was impressive. It was not large, but it was tall and well designed. It had a deep moat, a stout outer wall, and a high inner tower girt with parapets and embrasures. It must have been built by magic, because it would have taken an army of skilled craftsmen a year to build it by hand. Yet Humphrey was supposed to be a magician of information, not of construction or illusion. How could he have magicked such an edifice? No matter, the castle was here. Bink walked down to the moat. He heard a horrible kind of galloping splash, and round from behind the castle came a horse, running on the water. No, not a horse, a hippocampus, or seahorse, with the head and forefeet of a horse and the tail of a dolphin. Bink knew the dolphin only from old pictures. It was a kind of magic fish that breathed air instead of water. Bink stepped back. The thing looked dangerous. It could not follow him out on the land, but it could pulverize him in water. How was he to cross the moat? There did not seem to be any drawbridge. Then he noted that the hippocampus wore a saddle. Oh no! Ride the water monster? Yet it obviously was the way to go. The magician did not want his time wasted by anyone who wasn't serious. If he lacked the nerve to ride the seahorse, he didn't deserve to see Humphrey. It made perverse sense. Did Bink really want the answer to his question? At the price of a year's service? The picture of beautiful Sabrina came to his mind, so real, so evocative, that all else became meaningless. He walked up to the hippocampus, waiting at the edge of the moat expectantly, and climbed onto its saddle. The creature took off. It neighed as it sped around the moat instead of across it. The steed was jubilant, using the water as a veritable racetrack, while Bink desperately clung to the saddle horn. The powerful front legs of the hippocampus terminated in flippers rather than hooves, scooping out gouts of water back on either side, drenching him with the spray. The tail, curled in a muscular loop when the creature was stationary, uncoiled and threshed the water with such vigor that the saddle whipped back and forth, threatening to dislodge the rider momentarily. Nay! Nay! The monster sounded gleefully. It had him where it wanted him, right in the saddle, ripe for bucking off. The moment he hit the water, it would turn and devour him. What a fool he'd been! Wait, so long as he remained in the saddle, it could not get at him. All he had to do was hang on, and in time it would tire. Easier thought than done. The hippocampus bucked and plunged, first lifting him above the boat, then immersing him in the frothing water. It curled its tail into a spiral and rolled, dunking him again and again. Bink was afraid it would stop with him on the bottom, forcing him to let go or drown. But the saddle was firmly fixed on its backside, and its horse's head projected the same direction Bink's head did. So it had to hold its breath when he held his. The monster was exercising, while Bink was merely hanging on. It was using more energy than he, and so it had to breathe sooner. Hence, it could not drown him, once he had figured this out. In fact, all he needed to do was keep his head, and he would win, for whatever that was worth. Finally, the creature gave up. It flopped to the inner gate and lay still while Bink dismounted. He had conquered the first hurdle. "Thank you, Hip," he said, making a little bow to the seahorse. It snorted and splashed quickly out of reach. Now, Bink faced a giant wooden door. It was closed, and he pounded on it with one fist. It was so solid that his hand hurt, and the sound was minimized. Dink, dink, dink. He drew his knife and rapped with the handle. Since he had lost his new staff in the moat, with no better result. If a hollow partition made the most noise, this was indubitably solid. There was no way to force it. Maybe the magician was out. There should still be servants attending to the castle. Bink was getting angry. He'd made a long, hazardous journey to get here, and he was ready to pay the exorbitant price for one piddling bit of information. And the damned good magician lacked the courtesy even to answer the door. Well, he would get in despite the magician. Somehow, he would demand his audience. He studied the door. It was a good 10 feet tall and 5 feet wide. It seemed to have been made out of hand hewn 8 by 8 posts. The thing must weigh a ton, literally. Ten feet tall and 5 feet wide, made of hand hewn 8 by 8 posts. That would weigh over a ton, I think. Anyway, it had no hinges, which meant it had to open by sliding to one side. No, the portals were solid stone. Lifted out of the way? There were no connecting ropes to haul it up, no pulleys that he could see. There might be hidden screws set into the wood, but that seemed a lot of trouble and somewhat risky. Screws sometimes let go at inopportune moments. Maybe the whole door dropped into the floor. That, too, was stone. So it seemed the whole mass simply had to be removed every time somebody wanted to access. Ridiculous. It had to be a phony, a dummy. There would be a more sensible aperture for routine use, either magical or physical. All he had to do was find it. In the stone? No, that would be unmanageably heavy. If it were not, it would represent a weakened place where an enemy could force entry. No point in building a substantial castle with such a liability. Where then? Bink ran his fingers over the surface of the huge mock door. He found a crack. He traced it around in a square. Yes. He placed both hands against the center and shoved. The square moved. It slid inward and finally dropped inside, leaving a hole just big enough for a man to crawl through. Here was his entry. Okay, here is one of them things where like you find out what the author what was inside the author's head, like a 10-foot tall door, right? 10 foot, and then 5 feet wide. But then it's got a square opening inside of it, wide enough for a man to get through. So like logically, he should have said that the door would should have been wider. But also, this is a magical nation. This is a magical country in the shape of Florida. The square moved. It slid inward and finally dropped inside, leaving a hole just big enough for a man to crawl through. Here was his entry. Bink wasted no time. He climbed through the hole. Inside was a dimly illuminated hall, and another monster. It was a manticora, a creature the size of a horse, with the head of a man, body of a lion, wings of a dragon, and tail of a scorpion. One of the most ferocious magical monsters known. Welcome to lunch, little morsel, the manticora said, arching its segmented tail up over its back. Its mouth was strange, with 3 rows of teeth, one inside another. But its voice was its voice was stranger. It was something like a flute and something like a trumpet, beautiful in its fashion, but difficult to comprehend. Bink whipped out his knife. I am not your lunch, he said, with a good deal more conviction than he felt. I ain't committing to that voice. I ain't committing to that voice, all right? I ain't, or maybe I am. What is that? All right. The manticora laughed, and now its tones were the sour notes of irony. You're not anyone else's lunch, mortal. You have climbed nimbly into my trap. He had indeed. Bink was fed up with these pointless obstacles, and also suspected that they were not pointless, paradoxical as that might seem. If the magician's monsters consumed all callers, Humphrey would never have any business, never obtain any fees. And by all accounts, the good magician was a grasping man who existed principally to profit himself. He needed those exorbitant fees to increase his wealth. So probably this was another test, like those of the seahorse and the door. All Bink had to do was figure out the solution. I can walk back out of this cage any time I want to, Bink said boldly. He willed his knees not to knock together with his shivering. It isn't made to hold people my size. It holds in monsters your size. You're the prisoner, Molar Face. Molar Face? The Manticora repeated incredulously, showing about 60 molars in the process. Why, you pipsqueak mortal, I'll sting you into a billion years suffering sleep. Bink made for the square portal. The monster pounced, its tail stabbing forward over its head. It was horribly fast, but Bink had only feinted. He was already ducking forward, directly at the lion's claws. It was the opposite direction from that which the monster had expected, and the thing could not reverse in midair. Its deadly tail stabbed into the wood of the door, and its head popped through the square hole. Its lion's shoulders wedged tightly against it, unable to fit through the hole, and its wings fluttered helplessly. Bink could not resist. He straightened up, turned, and yelled, "You didn't think I came all the way here just to back out again, did you? You half-reared monster!" Then he planted a swift, hard kick on the creature's posterior, just under the lifted tail. There was a fluted howl of rage and anguish from the door. Then Bink was away, running down the hall, hoping there was a man-sized exit. Otherwise, the door seemed to explode. There was a thump behind as the manticora fell free and rolled back to its feet. It was really angry now. If there were no way out, there was. The challenge had been to get around the monster, not to kill it. No man could kill such a creature with a knife. Bink scrambled through the barred gate as the manticora charged down through the hall too late, splinters of wood falling from its tail. Now Bink was in the castle proper. It was a fairly dark, dank place, with little evidence of human habitation. Where was the good magician? Surely there would be some way to announce his presence, assuming that the ruckus with the manticora had not sufficed. Bink looked around and spied a dangling cord. He gave it one good yank and stepped back lest something drop on him. He did not quite trust this adorable castle. A bell sounded. Dong, 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 dong. A gnarled old elf trotted up. "Who shall I say is calling?" "Bink of the North Village." "Drink of what?" "Bink. B-I-N-K." The elf studied him. "What shall I say is the master, is the business of your master Bink?" "I am Bink. My business is the quest for a magical talent." "And what recompense do you offer for the invaluable time of the good magician?" "The usual scale. 1 year's service." Then, in a lower tone, "It's robbery, but I'm stuck for it. Your master gouges the public horrendously." The elf considered. "The magician is occupied at the moment. Can you come back tomorrow?" "Come back tomorrow?" Bink exploded. "Think of what the hippocampus and manticora would do to him if they got a second chance. Does the old bugger want my business, or doesn't he?" The elf frowned. "Well, if you're going to be that way about it, come on upstairs." Bink followed the little man up a winding staircase. The interior of the castle lightened with elevation and became more ornate, more residential. Finally, the elf showed the way into a paper-filled study. The elf seated himself at a big wooden desk. "Very well, Bink of the North Village. You have won your way through the defenses of this castle. What makes you think your service is worth the old gouging bugger's while?" Bink started to make an angry exclamation, but cut himself off as he realized this was the good magician Humphrey. He was sunk. All he could do now was give a straight answer before he got kicked out. "I'm strong, and I can work. It is for you to decide whether that is worth your while." You were oink-headed and doubtless have a grotesque appetite. You'd no doubt cost me more in board than I'd ever get from you." Bink shrugged, knowing it would be futile to debate such points. He could only antagonize the magician further. He had really walked into the last trap, the trap of arrogance. "Perhaps you could carry books and turn pages for me. Can you read?" "Some," Bink said. He had been a reasonably apt pupil of the centaur instructor, but that had been years ago. "You seem to be a fair-handed insult, too. Maybe you could talk intruders out of intruding with their petty problems." "Maybe," Bink agreed grimly. Obviously, he had really done it this time, and after coming so close to success. "Well, come on. We don't have all day," Humphrey snapped, bouncing out of his chair. Bink saw now that he was not a true elf, but a very small human being. An elf, of course, being a magical creature, could not be a magician. That was part of what had put him off at first, though increasingly he wondered about the accuracy of that conjecture. Xanth continued to show him ramifications of magic he had not thought of before. Apparently, the magician had accepted the case. Bink followed him to the next room. It was a laboratory, with magical devices cluttering the shelves and piled on the floor, except for one cleared area. "Stand aside," Humphrey said brusquely, though Bink hardly had room to move. The magician did not have an endearing personality. It would be a real chore to work for him for a year, but it just might be worth it if Bink learned he had a magic talent, and it was a good one. Humphrey took a tiny bottle from the shelf, shook it, and set it on the floor in the middle of a pentagram, a five-sided figure. Then he made a gesture with both hands and intoned something in an arcane tongue. The lid of the bottle popped off. Smoke issued forth. It expanded into a sizable cloud, then coalesced into the shape of a demon. Not a particularly ferocious demon. Okay, here, I just got it with this. An arcane tongue. So where is this? Whence is this language from? Pierce does this like a lot. He just whips stuff. Maybe in a later book, he's gonna like. Maybe he's just like opening doors for himself, like back door, front door plots. I guess for more lore. I don't know, but he just like doing this stuff all the time. Arcane tongues. Like, what do you mean from the mundane world or what, dude? All right, let me get back to this. The lid of the bottle popped off. Smoke issued forth. It expanded into a sizable cloud, then coalesced into the shape of a demon. Not a particularly ferocious demon. This one's horns were vestigial, and his tail had a soft tuft instead of a cutting barb. Furthermore, he wore glasses, which must have been imported from Mundania, where such artifacts were commonly used to shore up the weak eyes of the denizens there. Or so the myths had it. Bink almost laughed. Imagine a nearsighted demon. I guess in Xanth, if you can't see proper, you get the lick. You get eat by something. But that's wild and like strangely. The weak eyes of the residents of Mundania. It's like, okay, well, but really, I guess that's how it would be. Imagine A nearsighted demon. O Beauregard, Humphrey intoned, I conjure thee by the authority vested in me by the compact. Tell us what magic talent this lad, Bink of the North Village of Xanth, possesses. So that was the magician's secret. He was a demon summoner. The pentagram was for containing the demons released from their magic bottles. Even a studious demon was a creature of hell. Beauregard focused his lens-covered eyes on Bink. Step into my demesnes. Demines? Step into my demines. We're learning a new word here, kids. I'm going to say demines because it looks like a fancy French word, but Demesnes. So I know that's not Demesnes or Demesnes, or like in the German way, Demesnes. I think it's got that strange French like debris. It's like out of that pipe. So that's what we're gonna do. Step into my demesnes that I may inspect you properly, he said. Nuh-uh, Bink exclaimed. You're a tough nut, the demon said. I didn't ask you for his personality profile, Humphrey snapped. What's his magic? The demon concentrated. He has magic. Strong magic. But strong magic. Bink's hopes soared. But I'm unable to fathom it, Beauregard said. He grimaced at the good magician. Sorry, fathead. I'll have to renege on this one. Then get ye gone, incompetent, Humphrey snarled, clapping his hands together with a remarkably sharp rapport. Report. With a remarkably sharp report. Evidently, he was used to being insulted. It was part of his lifestyle. Maybe Bink had lucked out again. The demon dissolved into smoke and drained back into his bottle. Bink stared at the bottle, trying to determine what was visible within it. Was there a tiny figure, hunched over a miniature book, reading? Now the magician contemplated Bink. So you have strong magic that cannot be fathomed. Were you aware of this? Did you come here to waste my time? No, Bink said. I never was sure I had magic at all. There's never been any evidence of it. I hoped, but I feared I had none. Is there anything that you know of that could account for this opacity? A counterspell, perhaps? Evidently, Humphrey was far from omnipotent. But now that Bink knew he was a demon conjurer, that explained it. Nobody summoned a demon without good reason. The magician charged heavily for his service because he took a heavy risk. I don't know of anything, Bink said, except maybe the drink of magic healing water that I took. Beauregard should not have been deceived by that. He's a pretty savvy demon, real scholar of magic. Do you have any of that water with you? Bink held out his canteen. I saved some. Never can tell when it might be needed. Humphrey took it, poured out a drop on his palm, touched his tongue to it, and grimaced thoughtfully. Standard formula, he said. It doesn't bollocks up informational or divinatory magic. I've got a keg of similar stuff in my cellar. Brewed it myself. Mine is free of the spring's self-interest, Gaius, of course. But keep this. It can be useful. The magician set up a pointer attached to a string beside a wall chart with pictures of a smiling cherub and frowning devil. Let's play 20 questions. He moved his hands, casting a spell, and Bink realized that his prior realization had been premature. Humphrey did do more than demon summoning, but he still specialized in information. Bink of the North Village, he intoned. Have you oriented on him? The pointer swung around to indicate the cherub. Does he have magic? The cherub again. Strong magic. Cherub. Can you identify it? Cherub. Will you tell me its nature? Pointer moved to cover the devil. What is this? Humphrey demanded irritably. No, that's not a question, idiot. That's an exclamation. I can't figure out why you spirits are balking. Angrily, he cast the release spell and turned to Bink. There's something mighty funny here, but it's become a challenge. I'm going to use a truth spell on you. We'll get to the heart of this. The magician waved his stubby arms again, muttered a vile sounding incantation, and suddenly Bink felt strange. He'd never experienced this odd type of magic before, with its gestures, words, and assorted apparatus. He was used to inherent talents that worked whenever they were willed to work. The good magician seemed to be something of a scientist, though Bink hardly understood that mundane term either. What is your identity? Humphrey demanded. Bink, of the North Village. It was the truth, but this time Bink said it because the spell compelled him, not because he wanted to. Why did you come here? To find out whether I have magic, and what it might be, so I shall not be exiled from Xanth and can marry. Enough, I don't care about the sordid details. The magician shook his head. So you were telling the truth all along. The mystery deepens. The plot thickens. Now, what is your talent? Bink opened his mouth, compelled to speak, and there was an animal roar. Humphrey blinked. Oh, the manticore is hungry. Spell a bait. Wait here while I feed him. He departed. An inconvenient time for the manticore to get hungry, but Bink could hardly blame the magician for hastening to the feeding chore. If the monster should break out of its cage, Bink was left to his own devices. He walked around the room, stepping carefully to avoid the litter, not touching anything. He came to a mirror. Mirror, mirror on the wall, he said playfully. Who is the fairest one of all? The mirror clouded, then cleared. A gross, fat, warty toad peered out. Bink jumped. Then he realized this is a magic mirror. It had shown him the fairest one of all. The fairest toad. I mean, the fairest female human being, he clarified. Now Sabrina looked out at him. Bink had been joking at first, but he should have realized that the mirror would take him seriously. Was Sabrina really the fairest girl of all? Probably not, objectively. The mirror showed her because, to Bink's prejudiced eye, she was the one. To some other man, the picture changed. Now the girl Wynne looked out. Yes, she was pretty too, though too stupid to be worthwhile. Some men would like that very well, however. On the other hand, I just gotta, I can't, this guy's thing, man, he's got a, yo. He's awful with the qualities of people. He's very shallow, allegedly. On the other hand, now the sorceress Iris looked out, in a most beguiling illusion. Well, it's about time you got around to me, Bink, she said. I can still enable you to. No, Bink cried, and the mirror went blank. I guess, I guess maybe since she's a, a sorceress or something like that, it was basically like a telephone, like a video conference, or a video call for her. I guess I don't know. It's a little weird, right? He calmed himself, then faced the mirror again. Can you answer informational questions too? Of course it could. Otherwise it wouldn't be here. The mirror clouded and cleared. A picture of the cherub appeared. Why are we having so much trouble discovering my talent? The picture that formed this time was that of a foot, a paw, a monkey's paw. Bink looked at it for some time, trying to figure out its meaning, but it eluded him. The mirror must have gotten confused and thrown in an irrelevant image. What is my talent? He asked at last. The mirror cracked. What are you doing? Humphrey demanded behind him. Bink jumped guiltily. I seem to have broken your mirror, he said. I was just You was just asking stupidly direct questions of an instrument designed for subtlety, Humphrey said angrily. Did you actually think the mirror could reveal what the demon Beauregard balked at? I'm sorry, Bink said lamely. You're a lot more trouble than you're worth, but you are also a challenge. Let's get on with it. The magician made his gesture and incantation again, restoring the truth spell. What is your... There was a crash. The glass had fallen out of the cracked mirror. I wasn't asking you, Humphrey yelled at it. He returned to Bink. What? There was a shudder. The castle shook. Earthquake! The magician exclaimed. Everything happens at once. He crossed the room and peered out at an embrasure. No, it's only the invisible giant passing by. There's there's an invisible giant. Yes. Yes, there's an invisible giant. Humphrey returned once more to Bink. This time he squinted at him. Hard. It's not coincidence. Something is preventing you, or anything else, from giving that answer. Some very powerful, unidentified magic. Magician caliber enchantment. I'd thought there were only 3 persons of that rank alive today, but it seems there's a fourth. 3. Humphrey, Iris, and Trent. But none of these have magic of this type. Trent, the evil magician, perhaps you call him evil. I never found him so. We were friends. in our fashion. There's a kind of camaraderie at our level. But he was exiled 20 years ago. Humphrey looked slantwise at Bink. You equate exile with death? He resides in Mundania. My information does not extend beyond the shield, but I am sure he survives. He is an exceptional man, but without magic now. Oh, oh. Bink had equated exile with death, emotionally. This was a good reminder. There was life beyond the shield. He still did not want to go there, but at least it diminished the specter. Though it galls me exceedingly, I dare not push the question further. I am not properly protected against interference magic. But why would anyone try to prevent me from knowing my own talent? Bink asked, bewildered. Oh, you know it. You just can't tell it, even to yourself. The knowledge is buried deep inside of you, and there, it seems, it is going to remain. I simply am not prepared to take the risk involved for a mere 1 year's service. I'd almost certainly take a loss on that contract. But why would a magician? I mean, I'm nobody. How could it benefit anybody else to stop me from? It might not be a person at all, but a thing placing a geas on you, a geas of ignorance. But why? Humphrey grimaced. Lad, you grow repetitive. Your talent could represent some threat to some powerful special interest, as a silver sword is a threat to a dragon, even though it may not be near that dragon. So that entity protects itself by blocking off your knowledge of your talent. But if we knew that, we'd know your talent. Humphrey snapped, answering the unformed question. Still, Bink persisted. How can I demonstrate my talent, then, so I can stay in Xanth? You do seem to have a problem, Humphrey remarked, as if it were of only academic importance. He shrugged. I'd answer if I could, but I can't. There is, of course, no charge for my service, since I was unable to complete it. I will send a note with you. Perhaps the king will allow you to remain after all. I believe the bylaws specify that each citizen shall be possessed of magic, not that he actually has to demonstrate it in public. On occasion, the demonstration is suspended. I remember one young man who was able to change the color of his urine at will, for example. An affidavit was accepted in lieu of public display. Failure seemed to have mellowed the magician considerably. He served Bink a pleasant meal of brown bread and milk from his private breadfruit orchard and deer fly stable, respectively, and chatted almost sociably. So many people come here and waste their questions, he confided. The trick is not necessarily to find the answer, but to find the correct question. Yours is the first real challenge I've had in years. The last one was, let me think, the amaranth. The farmer wanted to know how to develop a really superior plant for greens and grain so he could feed his family better and bring in a little income for the comforts of life. I located the magic amaranth for him, and now its use is spread all over Xanth, and beyond it too. For all I know, It is possible to make bread from it that is almost indistinguishable from the real thing. The magician pulled out a drawer and brought out a special loaf. See, this has no stem. It was baked, not budded. He broke off a chunk for Bink, who was glad to accept it. Now that was the kind of question to ask. The answer benefited the whole country of Xanth as well as the individual. Too many desires are of the monkey's paw variety, in contrast. The monkey's paw! Bink exclaimed. When I asked the mirror, it showed me. It would. The image derives from a mundane story. They thought it was fiction. But here in Xanth, there is magic like that. But what? Do you want to invest a year's service after all? No, not for that. Bink concentrated on chewing the new bread. It was tougher than true bread. Then have it free. It simply means a type of magic that brings you more grief than good, though it grants what you technically ask. Magic you're better off without. Was Bink better off not knowing his talent? That was what the mirror had seemed to tell him. Yet how could exile, which would provide him of it entirely, be better than knowledge? How many people come with questions, stupid or otherwise? Not so many now. Do many people come with questions, stupid or otherwise? Not so many now that I built this castle and hid it. Only the really determined find their way here now. Like you. How did you build it? So long as the magician was talking. The centaurs built it. I told them how to rid themselves of a local pest, and they served me for a year. They are very skilled crafts creatures, and did a fine job. Periodically, I fouled up the roots here, applying spells of misdirection so as not to be pestered by casual querists. It's a good location. The monsters, Bink exclaimed. The hippocampus, the manticora. They're serving years of service, discouraging idle questioners. Of course, do you think they'd stay here for the mere pleasure of it? Bink wondered. He remembered the unholy fee with which the seahorse had flung itself about. Still, it would naturally prefer the open sea to a mere moat. He had finished the bread. It had been almost as good as real bread. With your powers of information, you could, why, you could be king. Humphrey laughed, and there was nothing whining or bitter about it. Who in his right mind would want to be king? It's a tedious, strenuous job. I'm not a disciplinarian, but a scholar. Most of my labor is in making my magic safe and specific, refining it for greater applicability. Much remains to be done, and I'm getting old. I can't waste time with diversions. Let those who wish the crown take it. What does that mean? He may never talk about this. Maybe this gets talked about in a future book. I don't know. Most of my labor is in making my magic safe and specific, refining it for greater applicability. Is he like gonna try and make cell phones or something? Most of my labor is in making my magic safe and specific, refining it for greater applicability. Much remains to be done, and I'm getting old. I can't waste time with diversions. Let those who wish the crown take it. Disconcerted, Bink cast about for someone who wanted to rule Xanth. The sorceress Iris. The trouble with dealing in illusion, Humphrey said, seriously, is that one begins to be deluded oneself. Iris doesn't need power half as so much as she needs a good man. Even Bink could see the truth in that. But why doesn't she marry? She's a sorceress. A good one. She has powers you have not yet glimpsed. She requires a man she can respect, one who has stronger magic than she does. And all Xanth, only I have more magic than she. And I'm of another generation, really too old for her. Even if I had any interest in marriage, and of course we would be a mismatch, for our talents are opposite. I deal in truth, she in illusion. I know too much, she imagines too much. So she conspires with lesser talents, convincing herself that it can somehow work out. He shook his head. It is too bad, really, with the king fading and no heir apparent, and this alternate requirement that the crown go only to a full magician. It is entirely possible that the throne will be subject to her machinations. Not every young man has your integrity or loyalty to Xanth. Bink felt a chill. Humphrey knew about Iris's offer, about their encounter. The magician did not merely answer questions for a fee. He kept track of what was going on in Xanth. But he did not, it seemed, bother to interfere. He just watched. Maybe he investigated the background of specific seekers while the seahorse, Wall, and Manticora delayed them, so that by the time one won through, Humphrey was ready. Maybe he saved the information in case someone came to ask, what is the greatest danger facing Xanth? Whereupon he could collect his fee for answering. If the king dies, will you take the crown? Bink asked. As you said it will have to go to a powerful magician, and for the good of Xanth. You pose a question almost as awkward as the one that brought you here. The good magician said ruefully, I do have a certain modicum of patriotism, but I also have a policy against interfering with the natural scheme of things. There is some substance to the concept of the monkey's paw. Magic does have its price. I suppose if there were absolutely no alternative, I would accept the crown. But first, I would search the most diligently for some superior magician to assume the chore. We have not had a top talent appear in a generation. One is overdue. He gave speculally at Bink. There seems to be magic of that caliber associated with you, but we cannot harness it if we cannot define it. So I doubt you are the heir to the throne. Bink exploded with incredulous, embarrassed laughter. Me? You insult the throne. No, there are qualities in you that would honor the throne if you only had identified, controllable magic. The sorceress may have chosen better than she knew or intended, but evidently there is counter magic that balks ye. Though I'm not sure the source of that counter magic would make a good king either. It is a strange matter, most intriguing. Bink was tempted by the notion of being a potent magician, becoming king, and ruling Xanth. Oddly, It quickly turned him off. He knew deep inside that he lacked the qualities required, despite Humphrey's remarks. This was not merely a matter of magic, but of basic lifestyle and ambition. He could never sentence a man to death or exile, however justified that sentence might be, or lead an army into battle, or spend all day deciding the altercations of citizens. The sheer responsibility would soon weigh him down. You're right. No sensible person would want to be king. All I want to do is marry Sabrina and settle down. You are a most sensible lad. Stay the night, and on the morrow I'll show you a direct route home, with protections against the hazards on the way. Nickelpeed repellent? Bink asked hopefully, remembering the trenches Cherie the centaur had hurdled. Precisely. You will still have to keep your wits about you. No route is safe for a stupid man, but 2 days' travel on foot will suffice. Bink stayed the night. He found he rather liked the castle and its denizens. Even the manticora was affable now that the magician had given the word. I would not really have eaten you, though I admit to being tempted for a moment or three when you booted me in the tail, it told Bink. It is my job to scare off those who are not serious. See, I'm not confined. It pushed against the bars, and the gate swung open. Oh, it pushed against the bars, and the inner gate swung open. My year is almost up, anyway. I'll almost be sorry to have it ended. What question did you bring? Bink inquired somewhat nervously, trying not to brace himself too obviously for a flight. In an open space, there was no possible match for the manticora. I asked whether I have a soul, the monster said seriously. Again, Bink had to control his reaction. A year's service for a philosophical question. What did he tell you? That only those who possess souls are concerned about them. But but then you never needed to ask. Oh, wait. I'm committed to the bit now. That only those who possess souls are concerned about them. But but then you never needed to ask. You paid a year for nothing. No, I paid a year for everything. Possession of a soul means that I can never truly die. My body may slough away, but I shall be reborn, or if not, my shade will linger to settle unfinished accounts, or I shall reside forever in heaven or hell. Okay, pause here. I know I'm deep into this funny manticore voice here. But they have heaven and they have hell, and manticores can worry about going there. The things this man does, we're like halfway through this book. My future is assured. I shall neither suffer nor oblivion. I shall never suffer oblivion. There is no more vital question or answer. Yet that answer had to be in the proper form. A simple yes or no answer would not have satisfied me. It could not have been a blind guess or merely the magician's offhand opinion. A detailed technical treatise would merely have obfuscated the matter. Humphrey phrased it in such a way that its truth was self-evident. Now I need never doubt it again. Bink was moved. Considered that way, it did make sense. Humphrey had delivered good value. He was an honest magician. He had shown the Manticora, and Bink himself, something vital about the nature of life in Xanth. if the fiercest conglomerate monsters if the fiercest conglomerate monsters had souls, with all that implied, who could condemn them as evil? All right, well, that's been chapter 6. I've been out at the institute now. We're not at the studio right now. Uh, but yeah, thank you for stopping by. Hope you enjoyed my funny voice.